If you're a frequent reader of the news, you probably won't have missed the countless stories over the past few months that all talk about the fact that much of the Western world is expected to enter an economic recession by the end of the year.
New fears of a possible recession on the horizon.
And recession fears.
So are Americans prepared for a severe recession?
New fears of a recession.
That we may be headed for a recession.
It means a recession is well underway.
Unfortunately, these stories are already starting to come true. Last month, the US published data that showed that its economy shrunk for a second quarter in a row, which officially means that the USA is in a recession. And plenty of people believe that the UK is headed in the exact same direction, and that's due to the current cost of living crisis that we're all currently going through, which is fueled by high levels of price inflation, and that's becoming a bit of a problem. To put it in simple terms as to why this is such an issue, well, high levels of inflation over the past year has meant that the average household's income has shrunk by around 2.5%. And that's because whilst some people's wages have gone up, the amount that they've increased is still below the amount that prices have gone up on average, which is currently around 11%. Generally speaking, if things continue, then people are going to have less cash to spend on non-essential items because they're going to be using more of their money to pay for essential things such as food and energy costs, which are all getting pretty expensive. If you're thinking of becoming an Amazon FBA seller, then the impacts of the cost of living crisis and a global recession are both things that you shouldn't ignore. I'm not saying that it's the end of days and a global recession is going to cause Amazon and all of its sellers to go bust, getting rid of the Amazon FBA opportunity altogether. But what I am saying is that it's sensible to take a number of precautions and make various considerations in order to give yourselves downside protection in the event that things really do turn sour. So let's run through those precautions and considerations now. The first precaution to take is to consider whether the products that you're looking to sell have a higher risk of soon becoming unaffordable if consumers' wallets continue to be squeezed. For Amazon FBA sellers that offer products in the £10 to £30 range, the risk that this price bracket becomes unaffordable for the general population is actually pretty low. But any higher than this, and you may find that the sales over time noticeably reduce. So my advice is to avoid selling products that are priced above £30 or $35 because in the event of a recession, consumers are likely to have to think more carefully about whether their purchase at this price level is really needed, especially if the item is less of a household one and it's more of a luxury one. And if customers have to consider lots about whether they want to purchase from you, that's going to negatively impact your conversion and ultimately your level of profit. The category that your Amazon FBA product fits into is also going to be a really important consideration to make if you want to be best prepared for the event of a recession and give yourself downside protection. Categories that more frequently have non-essential or luxury products in them, those are likely to see a fall in consumer demand if the cost of living crisis continues to worsen. And examples of those could be ones that include gadgets and expensive beauty items. A better strategy for times like these is to target the categories and products that you think may benefit as a result of consumers being more conscious about where they spend their money. In my opinion, categories that did well during the initial stages of the pandemic, when people were on furlough, those could see a resurgence in popularity. So products associated with DIY, exercise workouts, and home cooking, for example. Essentially, you want to target the categories that offer products that basically allow customers to save money by doing a certain activity themselves, instead of going to the shops or paying for a professional to do it. When assessing any product to sell with Amazon FBA, you should always target those that provide a profit margin of at least 30%. And that is going to be especially important in the event of a recession, because if you do find that customers are suddenly unwilling or unable to afford what you're selling, it still gives you enough headroom to be able to lower your price without running the risk of you losing any money. In normal circumstances, I'd probably be just about okay with selling a product that had a 20% margin and was fast selling. But in an environment where customers are becoming more and more cautious about how much money they spend, that's a bit of a risky strategy, and it doesn't really leave you with enough headroom. So before progressing with any product that you find, always triple check your numbers and make sure that your margins are hitting that 30% threshold at the very least. As experts have become more and more convinced that much of the Western world is going to fall into a recession by the end of this year, investors have decided to exchange their cash into US dollars, which is seen generally as a safe haven. These actions have significantly strengthened the dollar, particularly against the euro and the pound, the latter of which has fallen 13% in value over the past year. In simple terms, that means that people that are buying things in dollars using their pounds, they're now paying 13% more than they were this time last year. And if you're thinking, well, who does that? The answer is 1, people that go on holiday to America, and 2, Amazon FBA sellers, because typically suppliers based overseas, they want to be paid in US dollars. This is a really important point to take note of because it can have a huge impact on your profit margins. So if you are an existing seller and you haven't calculated your profit margins for a while using the latest foreign exchange rate, make sure that you do, because you may find that the amount of profit that you're making has reduced compared to before. Fortunately, many analysts don't expect the dollar to strengthen that much more against the pound, and that provides some downside protection. But if that's not reassuring enough for you, then a simple solution to solve this problem is to sell on Amazon's US website. And that means that your revenue and your expenses are in the same currency, the US dollar, so you're not going to be impacted by fluctuations in the GBP or the pounds foreign exchange rate. The year ahead is certainly going to be a challenging one, regardless of whether you're an Amazon seller or not. Recessions generally impact pretty much every type of business that there is, so it's really important that if you are currently an Amazon seller, you prepare to mitigate any downside risk as much as you can now. And if you're not a seller and you rely on just one income stream, you look for ways to diversify. So make moves now to give yourself an additional form of income so that your quality of life doesn't suffer if prices continue to rise. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this topic and you've learned from it. Above all, stay positive, and I will see you guys next time.